Given this is still a developing market, we don't have as many mechanical experts as we have for IC. If you see, the servicing or repair of electric vehicles requires a very highly qualified mechanics. The skilled
Right, true.
workforce in India is currently smaller than it is for traditional car mechanics, and due to this the cost of hiring a specialized mechanic, the labor cost for repair or replacement may be higher.
According to WRI and ORF, India today is the world's fourth most significant greenhouse gas emitter, and we also rank third amongst countries with the world's worst air quality. The problem is more severe in North India, as 13 of the North Indian cities are among 15 of the world's most polluted. We all know that vehicles are a big contributor to pollution, and in fact, in India, they are the fastest growing source of carbon emissions. It's no wonder that electric vehicles are gaining popularity. Some of the government policies too have drafted favorable policies to make EVs more popular among customers. Though EVs account for only 4.7% of total automobiles sold in India, the segment saw a growth of over 200% YoY in FY22. Between June 22 and May 2023, India saw over 13 lakh EVs being sold. While we have seen a lot of talk in the media about electric vehicles, we know very little when it comes to getting insurance for them. Now, the reason why we need to talk about this in more detail is because an electric vehicle differs a lot from a normal vehicle, or what we typically call the ICE vehicles. This naturally means the premiums that you pay for a motor insurance cannot be priced in the same manner. The components of a normal vehicle or an ICE vehicle and that of an EV vary so much. The parts sometimes might not be easily repairable either. The damages that can be caused are different too, and the repair costs are not cheap either. Because while a random garage is very easy to find at every nook and corner of the country, the story is not the same for EVs. And for the insurance part, we aren't even sure how these plans are structured. Do they offer everything that one would need in an EV vehicle, and whether they are expensive or cheap? Whether you are an EV vehicle owner or someone considering buying an EV vehicle, there are too many things that you need to be aware of to make sure your vehicle is fully protected. You're listening to a brand new episode of Insuring India, a podcast by Digit Insurance, and I am your host, Sabri Saran. Stay with me for this wonderful conversation with Mayur Kacholia, who's the head of motor product at Digit General Insurance and also leads the EV segment for the company. He takes us through the differences between an ICE and EV vehicle, why it's challenging to price an EV insurance product, what are the new options available in the market, how are they priced, and more. Listen in.
Mayur, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast.
Thanks, Avery. Thank you for having me.
So, Mayur, before we start talking in detail about EV insurance, for our listeners, can you tell us how big has the electric vehicle segment gotten in India, especially compared to other developed economies?
Sure, Sabri. Let me give some stats and projection. So,
Right,
global electrical vehicle market is expected to expand at a CAGR of almost 21.7 till 2030. These are the
right,
projections that are being made. Even for India, we are expecting that Indian EV industry will grow by a CAGR of 36%. Niti Aayog, who is very much aiming to achieve a huge penetration, expects
right,
that EV sales will have a penetration of almost 70% for all commercial vehicle, 30% for private car,
right.
40% for buses, and more than 80% for two-wheeler and three-wheeler by 2030, within next 6-7 years. As you have already mentioned in your introduction, we have seen almost the growth is doubled over last year. This year
Right.
we have sold more than 10 lakh EVs with almost 206% year on year growth. If you see
Right.
the penetration of electric vehicle, this will account for around 4.7% of overall automobile. If I
Right.
have to talk about line of business wise, two wheeler has been the highest selling by count. If you see even the month on month trends, the month on month trends have been increasing for two wheeler where in the month of May 23, more than 1 lakh vehicles were sold from electric. After
Right.
June, if you know, there was removal of subsidy that is available on electric vehicles, and
Right.
hence we have seen some drop in the month of June, which again by August has covered, and we have reached around 62,000 of electric vehicles two wheelers sold in India.
Right.
Again, continuing on the two wheeler, even month on month, if I see two wheeler electric vehicles as a percentage of non electric vehicles, the penetration of EV, as we say, it has been ranging from 4 to 5%, which in the month of May almost touched 7%. If you see, the kind of manufacturers are still entering into two wheeler market. There are a lot of new OEMs, or the existing OEMs which used to produce IC vehicles are now moving towards electric vehicles, and as and when they come with the kind of distribution they have, I'm sure this will start catching up very quickly. If we
Right.
move on to next segment, let's say three wheeler passenger carrying vehicle, this segment has already touched almost 50-60% penetration, meaning 60% of passenger carrying vehicles plying on roads are electric vehicle already. This has been
Oh, wow.
consistent till January. This used to be around 50%, which as on August has touched 58-60%. The three wheeler PCV obviously get given the usage, the implementation or the execution or the moving towards electric vehicle have been very faster. Similar kind of thing is also seen in three-wheeler goods carrying vehicle. What used to be 34% market penetration in January 23, by August it has already touched around 46%. So these two segments, if we see, are very clearly in line with what Niti Aayog is projecting, and I am very sure that they will achieve this penetration percentage much before time.
Right.
If we go to four-wheeler, this is where I believe there is still a lack of penetration maybe. While the sales have been increasing rapidly, the kind of new vehicles that are getting launched are happening. However, maybe we may have some time for these vehicles to have a very good penetration, majorly because of the maybe the affordability issues, because the cost of electric vehicles specifically for private car are on a higher end side, while there are a lot of new vehicles that have been launched for a mid-level customer segment. Even here, if you see, mostly there are couple of 2-3 manufacturers or makers who have the highest penetration. For example, Tata almost have more than 65% market share in this. So many of the other make are still yet to come up with an EV. What we understand is this is still under progress. Many of them have started trials, and as we see electric vehicles being launched by other manufacturers which are top in IC, this should catch up very quick. So these are basically stats. If we see globally, also markets like China has already crossed around 20% of EV market share, and with the kind of things and the infrastructure changes that are happening in India, this will soon become India as well, crossing double digit soon.
Right, understood, Mayur. Those are some very exciting stats that are surely going in favor of the EV segment. But I want to get slightly technical here. We know that the normal petrol or diesel vehicles that ply on road are known as the ICE vehicles, which we call the internal combustion engine vehicles, right? So EVs are referred with that name primarily due to the source of energy, which is they are operated through electrically charged batteries. Can you explain what are the major differences between an EV vehicle and an ICE vehicle?
Sure, Sabri. Marginal differences, I would say, but I would like to maybe take it point by point. As you mentioned, source being the major difference. Electrical vehicle uses batteries. Maybe this is lithium ion mainly as of now in India as the energy source. While for an ICE vehicle, it uses either a gasoline, diesel, petrol as the fuel type. So the combustion or the main power source is the major difference. Another difference is transmission. The kind of transmission system, if you see in EV, it is more a powertrain, which is much simpler than an ICE powertrain. To give a context or more detailed example, while driving manual transmission cars or bikes, the driver has to keep shifting gears based on the speed. This is because the ICE engine can function with optimum efficiency at a certain range of RPM, which is rotation per minute. And IC engine produces maximum torque at a low speed, because at low speed you need to gain the speed and hence maximum torque, or during the start of the vehicle when the speed is very low, and eventually the torque reduces as the speed increases. Hence a multiple speed transmission system is needed. While if you see in EV, the motor produces a constant torque at all RPM. Therefore, only single speed transmission system is required for EVs.
Right.
Given this again comes from the source. Given the source of EV is constant, it is available completely. One of the reason why transmissions are different. Another factor, if I have to consider it, maybe the weight of vehicle. So EV, if
Right.
you see, may have a slightly heavier curve weight and a different weight distribution across the vehicle than what an ICE, because ICE will have a motor which is situated, and motor of an ICE will generally constitute the highest weight contribution within
Right.
ICE vehicle, while
Right.
for electric vehicles it would be mostly the battery, and
Right.
hence you would see marginally difference in weight distribution depending on where the battery is fit. It can be fit below, and hence the distribution would be little bit similar to an IC. Some of the OEMs fit it at the back, some of the OEMs fit it at the front, and hence you may see a little bit of difference.
Right.
Another factor to consider is obviously range. Generally, EV range, when I'm talking range, I'm saying range it once the charging is full, or let's say in case of electric vehicles, the fuel tank is full. You would see that EV generally will travel less, 100 miles per charge, let's say, while an IC can travel longer distance
Right.
without refilling. So this
Right.
is among the most important difference, which is the range, because for an EV, you after some kilometers you may have to stop and charge it again, which again is a time consuming process, while for ICE it's just couple of minutes, 5 minutes, you can just refill it at any petrol pump or gasoline pump, which
And
is another factor, which is the refilling time. The
right.
charging time is higher. It may range from 0.5 hours to 8 hours to get it fully charged, while an ICE has a shorter refilling time. EV has a large battery bank that takes up much more space and weight, while if you see ICE, it has a much smaller fuel tank, which again takes up a lot of less weight or less space. So
Right.
these are the major difference. If you see within EV as well, there are a couple of variants, I would say, which is one is what we call as a pure electric vehicle, which only runs on electricity, don't have
Right.
any other source of energy. For example, you can take Tata Nexon EV, a pure electric vehicle.
Right.
Obviously, this is something that is helping us for both noise pollution as well as air pollution. What we say, or whatever government are planning for carbon footprint reduction, this is what
Right.
will really help. Another kind of EVs that are commonly available are more of an hybrid vehicles, which is runs on a combination of electricity and combustion fuel.
Right.
This again will provide better fuel efficiency because it will use battery to enhance the fuel economy. So these are the two kind of EVs that are available in market as of now. The numbers or the discussions I am doing majorly is for pure electric vehicles.
Understood, Mayur. So you explained the differences between an EV vehicle and IC vehicle quite well. And from what I understand, the primary difference that do exist between these two vehicles is primarily due to the source of energy, which brings me to the next question. Then why do we need a separate motor insurance for EV vehicles? Can't the same existing motor insurance product be offered to an EV vehicle owner as well? Like, what are some essential reasons that as an insurer you need to design a separate EV cover?
So this is a very good question, I think, and something which a lot of people around me also ask.
Right.
Honestly, we don't need a separate insurance as such. The existing motor insurance is good enough. However,
Right.
there are some risks which an EV may face where a separate kind of coverage may be required. Maybe I will just break the coverages that are provided in the motor insurance policy and discuss one by one.
Right.
So the current existing motor insurance policy broadly covers third party accident insurance. The tariff or the pricing for the same is regulated by regulator IRDA, and
Right.
this is already given. This is something that is common across both IC as well as an EV. Another cover is more of an personal accident insurance or compulsory personal accident insurance for an owner driver. Again, this is a common cover for both. And the third is own damage insurance.
Right.
All three of these are generally covered in both IC as well as an EV. However, if you see for EV, battery forms one of the major components. In most of the makes that we have now, it almost contributes 60% of the vehicle cost. And if any major damage happens to battery, currently given the scenario, it may mean replacement of the same with a new one. There are few models where even repairs are possible, but if you understand what I am talking about is a damage to a particular part where 60% of vehicle cost has to be repaid. Also,
Right.
if you see existing own damage insurance as per the tariff set by regulator, battery attracts a depreciation of 50%, which again may result in a lower than actual claims payment to insured. In an IC, damages to battery use doesn't really used to happen or was very minimal because the battery was very low, the cost of the battery was very low, and hence 50% depreciation on that may not be a big cost. However,
Right.
for EVs, obviously this becomes a very big cost. Along with this, obviously EVs come up with additional accessories, say the charger, for example, and even chargers for EVs would be expensive. Given the existing OD mainly covers the vehicle and the component inside it, the losses to charger may not be covered. Charger that you are keeping into your parking or somewhere may not be covered, and hence maybe the cost to any loss or damage to that maybe currently have to be borne by the insured. Again, like I said, this is also an expensive component, cost almost couple of percent or more than that for a vehicle as a percentage of IDV, if I have to talk about. Additionally, there are a lot of losses that we have seen, common losses or common kind of claims that we see coming from electric vehicles specifically, which is rat entry through open ports or
Right.
consequential loss due to rat bite to wiring. For example, main wiring harness is cut due to rodent bite, which leads to a short circuit to the control module. Or
Right.
there are couple of examples like rat entry in AC blower and getting stuck inside the blower unit, which leads to further damage to the blower unit. Now, these are generally excluded as per the Indian motor tariff because the probability of these kind of accidents are very minimal in an IC. However, we have seen that in EVs, these kind of losses have come. Now, these incidents, like I said, may not really happen or are very frequent in IC, but these are common in EVs as far as we have seen. And given these all ifs and buts, if I may so say so,
Right.
gives rise to a need of an additional add-on to cater customer needs.
Understood, Mayur. I think you explained quite well what are the additional risks that an EV vehicle typically carries. So, extending that answer, I want to understand things from an underwriting point of view as well. Like, how is the pricing of these products being done, or what are some of the challenges in pricing an EV insurance product? Because, as you rightly said before, it's a new market, right? It's an evolving market. IC vehicles have existed for decades now, but this is a new segment. So, from an underwriting point of view, how are you seeing the pricing?
Right. So conceptually or consideration wise, pricing concepts remain same for both
Right.
IC and EV. However, as I explained, the risk might be different, the rating parameters might be different, the claims experience that we are getting might be different, and hence this needs to be baked in the pricing separately for an EV. EV
Right.
has seen journey of now more than 2 years, some of it being the COVID period that we have seen, while the
Yeah.
actual experience that we are getting is credible for short term kind of losses, which is, let's say, the own damage losses. There is still time to get stable trends given multiple changes at OEM end, gaining claims handling experience at insurers end, new models and OEMs launching new vehicles, and so on.
Right.
Every day you see, or every week you see, some or other EVs getting launched with a very different kind of structure, different kind of body, and so on. And hence, pricing on day one is obviously basis a broad analysis, and then it goes to an experience based price. Some of the considerations that might have to be taken for pricing this are mostly the approach is simply what would be the expected frequency, what would be the expected severity. What is expected or what is maybe thought of is that maybe EVs may end up to have a little higher severity,
Right.
majorly because these are expensive. If you see, model technology is abundant in EVs, including high capacity batteries, advanced auto components, and more. So the IDV or the showroom price generally is higher, and the pricing generally depends on the showroom price or IDV as we say.
Right.
So
Correct.
as
Yeah.
the IDV rises, the premium may rise directly in proportion to the IDV, and hence the base premium for own damage may be a little higher if I only consider this. Also, electric vehicle components are pricey, so any fixing, any replacement to such pricey, or the battery that I talked about, which is almost 60%, will be an higher cost to company, and hence this may also result for an higher severity. Also, replacement versus repair. In an IC, there are a lot of components which gets replaced or
Right.
repaired. Now, repair
Yeah.
will always save some money to insurance as well as to the customers.
Right.
However, as of now, given the kind of components or the technologies that are being used in EVs, many of the parts gets replaced, which again is a higher cost to insurance company. And given this is still a developing market, we don't have as many mechanical experts as we have for IC. If you see, the servicing or repair of electric vehicles requires a very highly qualified mechanics. The skilled
Right. True.
workforce in India is currently smaller than it is for traditional car mechanics. And due to this, the cost of hiring a specialized mechanic, the labor cost for repair or replacement may be higher. So these are few things because of which we believe maybe the severity may end up to be higher than IC. As I talked about, these expensive components in EV and requirement of special mechanical experts, severity may be higher for EVs. However, it is expected that it will come down over time with increase in infrastructure. Another thing is, maybe it is expected that EVs may have higher total losses claims. For example, many models, battery contributes 60% of vehicle cost. Any
Right.
accidental damage resulting to the battery, or any floods, water ingression resulting to a loss to battery, which is almost 60%, will be
Right.
counted as a total loss, and hence it may be expected that this may be higher charges. There are other things or other risk related to batteries, which is battery running out of charge. There are higher chances that an EV would have higher frequency for assistance services, mainly due to
Right.
vehicles stop owing to battery running out of charge. The feedback that we were getting from claims team out one of the internal discussions we were having,
Right.
the expected incidence rate can go up to 20% for two-wheeler electric vehicle, because again, given the minimum or a very constrained limit of how many kilometers you can go versus what is the level of battery charged, it may happen that one may go out and get the battery discharged.
Right.
Another thing to consider is obviously manufacturing evolutions. Like I said, while there are a lot of players who have started EVs, there are so many players who are yet to come into play. Given these are earlier days, we have been observing various similar type of claims specific to make occurring due to some manufacturer defects at OEM end. While these are getting fixed along with experience, this is something that we have seen in EV. While what I have talked about is mainly own damage part, the third party risk, or will the third party be different for electric vehicles with respect to IC vehicle, given more safety, more control, is yet to be seen, because there is no credible industry experience. Given this is a long tail, intimations take more time and so on.
Right.
However, what is expected is battery for EV degrades with age, and it may happen that along with time, the usage of an EV may decrease, and hence maybe we can expect some lower frequency, specifically for two-wheeler, where the policy period is 5 years. Effectively, if I have to say, with respect to price, an EV may be higher to a range of 1.5 to 1.6. I am talking about the price of a vehicle.
Right.
If you see TVS Ntorq versus TVS iQube, or take any equivalent IC model to an EV model,
Right.
the ex-showroom price is almost 1.5, 1.6 times higher. This is excluding subsidy that we have on EV. However,
Right.
we will not see premium to be this high. The premium as a percentage of IDV will be within similar range or only lower for electric vehicles.
Understood. Mayur, I want to talk about the EV insurance plan now. Just from a product point of view, can you explain what are some of the things that are similar in both IC and EV insurance product, and what are some unique features or covers or add-ons that one can get in an EV insurance plan?
Right. So as I have mentioned, Abhi, the
Right.
risk an EV face marginally differs from an IC, and hence it is important for an individual to ensure all the risks are covered comprehensively. Many companies are offering a separate add-on for EV to cover some of or most of this risk, as mentioned and explained by me just now.
Right.
At Digit, we have launched an EV Shield add-on. which comprehensively covers losses to battery, which is the most important and expensive component for an EV.
Mm.
Additionally, we also have options to get the charger covered or panel covered, and one can also opt for a roadside assistance which are specific services like replacing a discharged battery with a charged one in case it's a swappable, or a mobile generator to charge a battery, etc. These are also available along with the other RSA components like any breakdown support, flat tire, towing, medical assistance, etc.
Right.
One can obviously visit our website or connect with our partners to understand in detail about these add-on coverages. So this is something that maybe customers should keep in mind while buying EV, given the risk is different, given the costing at time of accidents may be different. It is very important that one has this add-on.
Right. Understood, Mayur. I want to leave you with just last one question. For someone who has an EV vehicle or is considering to buy one, from an insurance point of view, what are like 3 or 4 things he or she should keep in mind when buying an EV insurance plan?
Right. So insurance would mitigate the risk for your vehicle, and hence the risk coverages should be in line with the actual risk one may face. The
Hmm.
existing motor policy, along with say an EV Shield add-on or battery product add-on, which a lot of companies offers,
Hmm.
would protect the losses arising out of general exclusions, and this is something that should be kept in mind. Obviously, all other add-ons like let's say a nil dep cover, RTI, key protect, tire protect, etc., are always preferred to expand the coverages.
Right.
So these are something that one should always consider, that for a particular vehicle, what are the inclusions and exclusions in the base, and given the kind of risk for the driver you are, what are the things that should be added or subtracted. However, obviously prevention is better than cure. One should
Right.
always take enough precautions to ensure no losses happen to vehicle. We have
Right.
seen people taking measures for the same, like installing a theft prevention sensors. This can help in premium reduction subsequently through NCB, or can get better pricing from insurance companies right away. Also, if someone is driving less or believe is a safe driver, one can opt for add-ons like pay as you drive, where an additional discount is provided for driving less, or may increase the voluntary deductible to reduce the premium. Effectively, EV is still evolving, and hope we achieve the benchmark set by Niti Aayog with much higher penetration of EVs. With time, I am sure EVs will become affordable with battery production happening in India, components being manufactured in India, and availability of experts on larger scale.
Understood. Thank you so much, Mayur. I'll let you go now. Thank you so much for joining us on the Insuring India podcast.
Thanks, Sabri. Thanks for having me. Pleasure being here.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation and learned something new about this evolving segment of EV insurance. That's all on this episode, folks. Do subscribe to us to keep getting notified whenever we drop something new. Thank you and see you next time.